Hey everybody, Charles here. I want to record a quick introduction to this week's episode as Dan and I are really enjoying coming up with provocative titles that speak to the theme of the episode, if not directly to the content. So this week's episode is titled, Don't Waste Our Time, but it's really more about not wasting your own time. Did you know that the average person that attends drug or alcohol rehab has to go 5 times before they achieve lasting sobriety? This seems relevant because this is our last episode on No More Mr. Nice Guy by Robert Glover. Dan and I have had different experiences with this book. I read it once and did almost nothing with the information. Then read it a second time and implemented some of the behaviors recommended, and it made me a better dater, but not really a better relationship partner. The third time I got into it was with Dan, and now I'm actually taking the whole thing seriously, including what I believe is the most difficult part, revealing myself to safe people, people that I'm not in a romantic relationship with, namely my therapist, Renata, who you'll hear from on an upcoming episode, my friend Rob, also coming up on next week's episode, actually, and of course, Dan. Dan's taken to the principles revealed in the book more quickly than I did, and I'm sure he'd agree that going through it with a friend has been a factor. I'd encourage you to find either a friend, a therapist, or a men's group to work through the issues introduced in this book. Don't get in the way of your own progress like I did and have to make big mistakes before you take self-improvement seriously. This book isn't the last thing you'll need to become the healthy, happy man you want to be, but it does offer a great place to start. I'd encourage you to start it with an open mind. Work through the chapters and the breaking free exercises, and you'll see that as you change your thoughts, your feelings will change, which will ultimately lead to a positive change in your behavior, and we'll be here to support you. Feel free to send us an email whenever you want to at mindfullymasculine@gmail.com, or look for our Facebook group that we're putting together where we can discuss any thoughts or questions that you have related to this book or other books or mental health issues or self-improvement questions. We're still putting the group together, but it's ready for members. So just look for Mindfully Masculine on Facebook and you'll find us. So I guess this is the call to action. Buy the book, either audio or the physical book to read, or even look into checking it out from your local library if you've got a decent library system where you live. And then try to find a friend or a therapist or both to discuss some of these very deep concepts with. There's a better life waiting for you. So don't waste your time.
Good morning, Charles. How are you?
Good morning, Dan. Doing well. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you.
What have you been up to this morning so far?
This morning, did a little journaling.
Nice. I like it.
Kind of reflect on the weekend.
The singer, or like what you did on Saturday and Sunday?
Yes. No, just no. What I did yesterday, a friend had a birthday and I was a little reluctant to go out. And I was not feeling like 100%, but I journaled before I went out yesterday and said, just kind of talk to myself like I would a friend. Said, hey, look, this is a good opportunity to, reestablish some connections and get a little bit closer to people, get to know people, and that I've been wanting to get a little bit more familiar with. And so I just reminded myself I should bring some positive energy to the interaction. Otherwise, don't even bother going. Where
that's fair.
In the past, when I was younger, a lot of times I would feel peer pressure from friends to do the socializing, and I would just drag myself to go, not in a good mood, not in a good mindset, and I was miserable. And I probably, indirectly made other people not so, so happy either. It's not like, I'd sit and stew in a corner or anything, but
right.
I just wasn't my best self. And I just realized that it doesn't take that much to kind of amp up and become your best self. And just at least for a couple of hours. And a lot of it just, starts with a proper mindset and then resting. For me, it's usually when I'm not 100% means I need to rest. So a quick 20-minute meditation, that does wonders for me, and I'm able to get a little turbo boost at that point and bring my best self to the interaction. And it was worth it. I had a great time and met a bunch of new people and it was a good time. So how about you? How was your weekend?
Oh, let's see. I'm trying to keep straight. Then I think Friday was the night that I went to dinner with my buddy AJ, and was that Friday or third? No, that was Thursday night, because we talked about it on Friday when we were preparing for the previous episode.
Right.
So I guess I did that on Thursday. Friday, you and I went dancing, right?
That's right.
Okay, yeah. So we went to Rhythm and Smooth over in Castleberry, which I love the look of the place. It's a very nice looking ballroom.
Yeah.
And I could imagine, I could conceivably see how people might have fun there. At a very abstract level, I see how that might be possible.
Yeah.
Where, I'm still dealing with the anxiety of dancing in front of people. Really, it's overall anxiety of, not being the best person in the room at something, which is obviously a ridiculously high and irrational standard to set for myself.
You better just quit your ballroom dancing right now, because you're never going to be the best in that room.
I am never going to be the best.
No way.
Or alternatively, I could train myself to not feel anxious that I'm not the best person in the room at a given thing.
Oh, that sounds like a lot of work. Forget it. No, don't do that.
Or I could delude myself into thinking I'm way better than I am. That's another possible solution.
Right. Yeah. Lots of options here.
That's what I managed. I pretty much managed to do that in when I was doing stand-up comedy on a very amateur hobbyist level, where based on no evidence whatsoever, I just like, yeah, I'm better than them, even though I wasn't. So that helped in that situation. But that's a little harder to pull off with dancing. The big roadblock with me and most styles of dancing, I've told you this before, and I've shared this with my coach, is, I watch guys that do certain dances and they're really, really good at it. I'll even watch professionals from Dancing with the Stars do it. And I'm like, wow, even when that particular style is executed flawlessly by somebody who's been doing it for years, I don't like the way it looks, and I'm never going to. So how do I get motivated to learn it? And I guess the answer is I just don't.
You don't have to, right? Just like you don't have to like every type of music you hear, right? I mean, that's the way I look at it, is there's certain styles and of music that I don't like, that I don't listen to, and so why would dance be any different? And there's lots of people that have been dancing for years who I'll be like, oh, do you know this? But like, no. I mean, you just, it's hard to kind of keep track of. It seems like everybody knows all the dances when you go to
that's what I was going to say.
And here's the thing is, they probably do at least like the basics of it, right? I mean, a lot of people know most of the basics of it, but it doesn't mean you have to. And occasionally I've run into people who've been doing it for years and like, no, I have no idea how to do any like Latin dances, right? Like they only know like the rhythm or the smooth or whatever. So, and you do you, man, like whatever, for me, I would get overwhelmed trying to learn all the dances. Right. And even though it's kind of like a language, you learn one and a couple will translate to the other. I don't want to know them all. I'd rather go deeper on a few of them, get really good on a couple of them. And then maybe, maybe experiment with the other ones down the road. And that sounds like what you've been doing.
But right? I do get the impression that there are not other people. Like if I saw somebody, doing an East Coast swing and he was really, really good at it.
Yeah.
And now this is completely a conversation that only exists in my mind. I've never had this with a person, but based on what I know of the people who are really into ballroom dancing, if I went up to him and said, hey, I noticed you're really good at East Coast swing, how long you've been doing it, blah, blah, blah. And then I said, oh, by the way, are there certain dances that you never learn because you just hate them? There's no way he's going to say, oh, actually, yes, there are some dances I've never even tried. I'm a super expert at this one style, but I have no idea how to do a bolero because I just watched somebody do it. And I was like, I freaking hate that. I'm never going to learn it. Okay. It's like the people who are really good at one are at least pretty good at everything,
right? So
from the people that I've met so far.
So I'm going to make an assumption here, like a chicken out of the egg comment. I'm going to say, did they get really good at a few of those dances first and then kind of delve into the other ones, or were they different from you and going, oh, I'm open to all these and learn them all, and then just end up. I think it would be more the first option, right?
I see this is probably one of the areas where our our substantial wealth and strong personalities is probably getting in the way of us learning very broadly what we could learn, because since I'm not doing $10 drop-in group lessons, I am paying my coach to do only private lessons, at least so far. When she suggests, okay, today we're going to do this, I get to say, no, we're not.
Right.
And often do.
Yeah.
Where when you're just showing up, when you only have the time and the money to pop in for a group class, it's like whatever they're doing that night is what you're doing.
Right. But also, I mean, the group classes that I take, it's one dance. I mean, I know I'm committed to this thing for 8 weeks. Right. So
yeah, that's true. But I think when we went that one time to the Crystal Ballroom, it was pretty much, we just showed up for a group class and it was whatever it was.
It was whatever it was. Yeah, absolutely. Right. Yeah. No, there's that, that as well.
So maybe that's maybe how most of these people who are good at everything got started. They were just like, well, Wednesday night's my dance night. I just show up for a group lesson and whatever the dance is, that's what I'm learning.
Yeah. Right. And, people are different, right? Sometimes, there's going to be lots of people who are open to it all and be like, hey, I just want to learn something. Whereas you've got very specific, and both are okay. Right. So don't think, I mean, right. Like, look, the bottom line is, whatever you're doing, are you enjoying it? That should be your measuring stick, not, don't feel like you're letting all the shoulds, these other ideas that have popped in your head for some reason. We all do it. I'm not saying, that you feel like there's this, requirement for you to like everything in all the different ballroom dances. And it's certainly not. That's certainly not the case.
But part of it is, my own internal or my own curiosity that I'm trying to aim inside myself, which is, what is it about those Latin dances where the guys are waving their arms all around? What is it that scares me about those? And is that something that I should be willing to, dive into a little bit and say, okay, screw it. If I'm serious about, because part of the whole experience of learning to dance is about, I don't like this. This makes me uncomfortable. I'm a little scared of it. So now I got to learn how to do it. So do I want to just stick to the ones that I've decided, well, these 3 dances are okay, I can tolerate those? Or should I go dive into, this is the one I hate the most, so doggone it, I'm going to spend a couple of weeks trying to learn it?
Well, I don't think that's a good idea, because that's kind of like saying, I'm not in shape, but I'm going to go run a marathon. As the first thing that I do.
And tell you I've decided to run a marathon.
Right. You know what I'm saying? Like,
no, that makes sense.
Start, there's uncomfortable, and then there's, and there's different like levels of uncomfortness. So,
there's stretching yourself, and then there's also training yourself to hate something that you already don't like.
And it's already going to be uncomfortable, learning any dance, even one that you like, because learning the feet, and then learning to go to the beat, and then your hands and your body position, and then thinking in advance to lead, to communicate with the woman and how you have to do that. It's, with your frame, and, and then eventually you need to learn how to, just relax and enjoy the music and the dancing. So you don't have to think about it, and actually have keep a smile on your face. Like, sometimes I have to remember not to squeeze, the crap out of her hands, because I'm thinking so hard. And it's not because I'm nervous. It's because I'm thinking so hard about what I have to do next.
Right.
And fortunately, I've had a couple of people, but that's the other nice thing about doing group lessons, is that you have, there's usually a few women in there who've been dancing quite a while, and they can pick up the little things that you're making mistakes on. Whereas, there's going to be some other women there who are just starting out like you, and they're not going to know that you're doing something wrong. So you get some additional teaching and feedback from some of the other ones.
These poor women who think that their hands are supposed to be so sore at the end of the night.
Yeah, and they're going back on and talking about their podcast about how much they hate ballroom dancing.
we need to
because it's painful.
I hope we run into these women at the podcast convention we go to in May or whatever it is. Like, hey, we wanted to let you know we hated dancing with you a few months back, but we really enjoyed the podcast where you talked about it.
Yeah. So, and a lot, I mean, for example, like, I went for a group lesson last week, and something that was, I'd always been told that I am very a lot of women have told me, relax. You feel tight. You feel upset. You you feel tight. And I'm like, I don't know. My legs seem a little bit loose. My body seems loose. My arms, I don't fit. I don't know. What am I giving off that is? And then finally a woman was like, you're squeezing my hands really hard. And I'm like, oh, that's why you think I'm like, tight and nervous or whatever, and yeah. And I keep forgetting that. I've been doing that for like the last year. So another benefit of why you should move away from just privates to doing the group.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, you and Victoria, my coach, have both convinced me that I need to go to the social dances like we went to Friday night, and I also need to take group lessons. Yeah. So,
well, hey, you're already doing the social dances, and so that's great. And
everybody is, everybody has been super nice, just like they always say that everybody's going to be nice. Everybody's nice. They all come up and ask you if you want to dance, and I say I don't know how to do this dance, and most of them say, well, I'll try to teach you, and then they do, and it has mixed results.
But they're patient and they're kind, and they know, like, they've been there, and so even when I'm stepping on feet or not getting it right or whatever, they still fake it and put a smile on their face, and make me feel like, hey, I didn't really mess up here. I didn't, and it's, yeah, I like it. And the other reason is because of I mean, I don't think I've met one person in the community that has not been kind and like supportive, and, they want more people to dance with. I mean, it makes sense. Why wouldn't, of course you'd encourage and want to teach other people who are just getting into it, making them feel as comfortable as possible, because that just, if there's more people to dance with, it's just more fun,
I have noticed, and obviously since, we're dancing with women, it's women that we're going to speak to the most, but I've not had many of the guys like come up and start conversations. I mean, I just always assume it's because they see me as a threat, but
well, but why would they? Here's the thing is, though, they're usually busy dancing.
That's true.
It's not like people are hanging around. Most of the other guys that are there have been.
That's true. They're in demand because there's not enough guys. So they're
right. Yeah. So
I don't know. I feel like they should come over and kiss the ring just for my mere presence at the venue.
I've had some decent conversations over at the snack table. Guys have come over, and we've made some small talk or whatever while they're breathing, whether they're trying to they're exhausted from dancing nonstop for an hour and a half, and so over some water or whatever, I have a couple of words.
I should probably take the opportunity to say I'm just joking about all that. I'm not I'm a prick, but I'm not that big of a prick, so I was kidding.
Yes,
I might have been a little too deadpan for some of the listeners to get. I don't really think that strangers should come introduce themselves to me and
kiss the ring.
How glad they are that I'm there.
Wow.
In fact, I'm way more comfortable when that doesn't happen. The beginning of Friday night when the gal that owns the place introduced us to everyone and said how it's our first time here. I told you right then. I was like, if you weren't here with me, I would have stood up, waved to everyone, and turned and walked out the door. It was so miserable for me.
I didn't expect that either. I really didn't.
It was so brutal. And I'm trying to put myself in her shoes to think, maybe if she showed up at a brand new place, that's how she would feel welcome, and that's how she would feel good about being there. But oh no, not me. That was I just wanted to curl up and die. It was so brutal.
Well, in the end, it was for our benefit, because by doing that, it allowed other people to go, okay, we know who they are. We know why they're there. And I felt like,
and it did give me some
more
license.
Comfortable coming up to us.
It gave me some permission to say no if I wasn't ready to dance with somebody.
Oh, that too. That's a great point.
They knew I was a newbie.
Right. Yep. Yeah.
But yeah, that was rough. I survived it though. I'm okay.
Yeah, you're still here to tell the story.
Yeah, and maybe next time that won't happen. So I don't know. Yeah. So let's see. Let's talk a little bit more about what else is going on. I took my vintage 2011 Yaris to the mechanic this morning. Had to be there at 7 a.m.
Do they work on antiques?
Yes, boy do they. And it did turn out that I was a little worried that I was driving on bad brakes so long that my rotors were shot. And that was in fact the case.
Okay.
Not really much I could have done to get in there any sooner. It's just, the schedule was what the schedule was. But as a result, They couldn't grind down and make my current rotors smooth because the grooves that my brake calipers made in them were too deep. So they had to replace the rotors, which added 200 plus to the job.
But you knew that was coming. You mentioned that.
I had a good idea that was going to be a problem. My $200 brake job looked a lot more like 450. But, you know, looking at it positively, a few weeks ago when I brought it in for what I was convinced was a bad alternator, all I needed was a new battery. So I saved, you know, the last trip was a couple $100 less than I thought it was going to be. This trip was a couple $100 more than I thought it was going to be, or than I hoped it could be. And so, you know, it evens out. It's still, I'm still driving a 2011 with 340,000 miles that I don't owe any money on, and I've never had to replace anything on it except for the consumables, you know, brakes, tires, batteries, stuff like that.
I wonder, considering how many miles you have on it, if you wrote to Toyota and said, I've had this wonderful experience, I've got this many miles on it, no real problems. I wonder if there would be some sort of way they could leverage that in their marketing in exchange for supporting
a free car
or free maintenance, maybe some basic maintenance or something like that. Because that's nothing to sneeze at, that many miles on it.
I suspect, I mean,
on a relatively inexpensive car to begin with, it's not
literally their cheapest.
Right. And that shows something about quality. Right.
I suspect
even if their lowest end car can go that many miles with just basic maintenance.
I suspect that they probably don't take you seriously until you're at 500,000, maybe even 1 million when it comes to something like that.
Okay. Well, maybe
because I know other friends that have either Honda or Toyotas that are 300,000 plus.
Right, but have they written into Toyota or Honda? I mean, Honda or right? I mean,
no. But if in my small circle, I know people that also have had that experience. I don't think it's as rare as we think it might be.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
You know what I mean? I mean, I'll start feeling special when I'm over 500,000, and I'm gonna try to. Well, I don't know. I'm getting a little antsy to have something a little nicer.
Okay, so you may not make it to 500,000.
I may not. I mean, because do I want to keep insurance on it? Do I want to keep it parked? Do I want to deal with all that just because of the kitsch factor of trying to get to 500,000 miles? Probably not. But I don't know. It has been good to me. That's for sure. I've been happy. The other thing that developed right before we started is I got an email from I've signed up with a new co-working space in downtown Orlando.
Yeah,
which
cool. Really cool.
Yeah, for our listeners that aren't familiar with our personal geography, which why would they be? I live in DeBary, Florida, not right on. It's like not like I have a lot on the St. Johns River, but I'm within walking distance to the river, just on the other side of the line between Seminole County, Florida, which is where Sanford is, and Volusia County, which is where Daytona Beach is. So I'm right on the Volusia County side. So it takes me about 35 minutes with no traffic to get into downtown Orlando. So I've got co-working space now in downtown, and my plan is to take our light rail that we have now, because we're a real city by some measures, and I'm going to take the light rail into the office and work at a co-working space a couple days a week and do both podcast business and day job business from there on my little Microsoft Surface Go. Nice. I'll take sponsorship from them as well, in addition to Toyota. And so I one of the things that Dr. Glover encourages in his other book, Dating Essentials for Men, is that when it comes to personal relationships, no magic's going to happen in your house, because if you're single, then it's probably just you. Yep. Or you and a roommate, in my case a cat. So getting out of the house is important for both professional and personal contacts.
Yep.
So I'm going to strive to 2 or 3 days a week, put on some decent clothes and go work out among the public.
That's great. I can't wait to see how that goes.
Yeah, I'm excited. And for $45 a month, I get complimentary coffee or tea, which I am going to go through. I'm going to make them regret that deal. I'm going to drink $45 worth of coffee every week, much less every month. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm trying to think. Oh, I only got through Friday night. So Friday we went dancing.
Yep.
Saturday night we we went to the Monroe, which is a real cool little restaurant in the in sort of the hip section of downtown, over by the Amway Center on the, I guess that would be the west side of I-4.
That was a great layout.
I can't
love
wait to go
that.
back to that place.
And
We definitely need to go for dinner.
but the best part is it's like 3 different or 4 different actual venues there, because I was looking at it and it's like there's like little like booths,
Right.
you know, a la, Tarantino style, for eating, and then
Yeah.
there's a regular bar, and then there's like a Starbucksy coffee shop area, and then
And there's the outside courtyard.
and then there's the outside courtyard,
Yeah.
which opens up into, I mean, it's beautiful there. And there was like hammocks and like couches to like hang out at. And yeah. And I mean, I'm so grateful for the weather that we have here in Florida, to be able to sit outside, in a light sport coat and, or a heavy green sport coat, as some people wore. And
Dan, it's called a dinner jacket.
Excuse me. And I meant emerald green. Emerald green dinner jacket.
Yes, you should.
Yes.
You should learn the lingo.
But to have those, just the variety, whatever you feel like doing at that point, you almost have it right in one place. And
I could definitely
see
great making a whole night of it. Let's meet there early for cocktails, then let's have dinner, then let's sit around and have some coffee. I mean, you could definitely make a 4-hour. You could have a 4-hour night there and enjoy everything. And then you
go take a nap on on the hammocks that they had hanging outside, right? And
for sure,
recharge before going out. So I guess the only downside is it looks like it closes at 10, so that might be a little bit early for a whole night kind of thing.
That's true. Yeah, you can start at 5 or 6.
Yeah,
and hang out there and then go downtown. I'm sure that's what a lot of people do.
Yeah, it's a great spot.
Go down to the local discotheque and cut a rug, as the kids say. The kids don't say either of those things, but I do because I'm old. So let's see. And then Sunday, I mainly stayed around my house and did some cleaning up, did some market research on our podcast, which today is already looking like a pretty good day. We release our new episodes on Monday. And we're recording this at 10 in the morning, and I believe it is already, we're 4 away from tying our best day. So
awesome.
Yeah. So I like watching those numbers go up.
Yeah, it's always fun.
I spend a lot of time on my phone just checking to see how it's going. But so I'm excited about doing some new stuff. We started the Patreon yesterday, got that set up, and so we will be offering a tier of member support for our patrons. So if you're interested in sending us $5 every month to get some exciting benefits, which I will actually pull up right now and tell you guys what those benefits will be. Dan will come to your house and vacuum. No, I'm just kidding. That will be the $10 level. We have not put that out there yet.
I don't do Windows, just as a heads up.
Let's see. I can't find the listing, so I may not get the words exactly right, but I remember what I set up, and I will share that now. So for our 1 tier of membership for $5 a month, the first thing you'll get is a shout out with our thanks on an episode where we say, thank you, Dan Littman, for supporting our podcast. I'll say your last name if you want me to, and if you don't, I won't. And then you can give either your website or one of your social media usernames, and maybe you'll come out of it with 10 more followers. Who's to say?
Ooh, free promotion. All right.
The sky's the limit.
Or $5 promotion, right? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So you'll get that. And then at some point when we start having any kind of meetups, either through like Zoom or in person, if you're in our area, or certainly look, if you want to fly us to your city and pay for our hotel and
we're open to that.
Our sizable bar bill. We're open to that, and we'll have a party. You can introduce us to all your friends and pretend like we're way more famous and successful than we actually are. We're open to that. But so we'll probably have some local stuff in the Orlando area, but we're open to doing stuff other places too. And so as the audience builds up, we'll certainly do that. So basically, if you support us with $5 every month, whenever we have one of those events, you'll be the first one to know about it, and we'll make sure that you're invited. So that's benefit number 2. Benefit number 3 is once every 6 months, you can send us a question, and it can be either for us or for one of the people that we choose to interview. And we guarantee that almost no matter how ridiculous your question is or inappropriate, we will read it and give you some kind of an answer. It may not be the answer you want. Like, the guys in white coats may show up at your house to institutionalize you if it's too bad. But if it's something that we would feel comfortable answering ourselves, which the stuff we would answer ourselves, that's a pretty wide net. There's not a lot we won't answer. And if it's not too crazy, we'll even ask one of our pseudo celebrity guests to answer it as well. And if it's real good, we might ask all of our interview guests, because we're putting together a list of questions that we're going to ask at the end of every interview to just give an idea of, where somebody's coming from and what they're like. Like, one of the ones that we're going to put on our list is, when you were 5 years old, your first day of kindergarten, if somebody asked you what you wanted to be when you grew up, what would you say? And then we're going to ask them, why they're not doing that, because most of us aren't. I mean, I'm neither president of the United States nor a dinosaur. So, things that work out the way that 5-year-old me thought they would.
Love it.
So, yeah. So we'll get to do that soon. We're lining up 3 interviews, all with licensed mental health professionals. So we'll get to break out those questions here in the next few weeks, and we'll probably start releasing those episodes in mid-February, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
something to look forward to.
So yeah, that's what's going on with the Patreon, and I'll have links and information and all that in our episode notes, so that if if you're really bad with your money and you're willing to part with it for almost no discernible value, we're the place to go.
I'm going to disagree. I think there's a lot of value we provide on this podcast.
Oh, there's a lot of value. It's just not discernible.
Yeah, we make you work for it.
Exactly. You got to get out the magnifying glass
and right
the
out
Sherlock
there.
Holmes hat to find it, but it's there.
But the best things in life you work for, and it feels more rewarding. So when you do find it, right? So yeah.
And plus,
so you're welcome in advance.
And plus, everybody who signs up now gets to tell their friends. They can be like, "Oh, I was a supporter of that podcast
Way
back when it was cool, before they sold out to the for all the money and the fame." So you could be the person who's like, "I like Green Day, but only before Dookie."
Right.
So yeah, glad to give that opportunity. All right, Dan, is there any other important business we have to cover before we start closing the door on our No More Mr. Nice Guy experience?
Yeah. How can they find us on Patreon?
Oh, what an excellent question. I should probably type in the URL to see if it actually works.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see. Patreon.com/mindfully masculine. Let's see if this goes anywhere. It sure does.
Oh, right.
Yes. So there you go. Patreon.com/mindfully masculine. And we'll also have a link there on our website, which is just mindfullymasculine.com. There will be a link to go to our Patreon, and we'll probably throw one on the Instagram page as well. So if you click the little link in bio on our Instagram, that'll have a link to it too. So yeah, patreon.com/mindfully masculine. That'll tell you all about our memberships and our tiers and all that. And again, for right now, it's just $5. We feel like any more than that would be over promising and under delivering, which is what you don't want to do.
And we absolutely appreciate you for supporting us, especially this early stage.
Yeah.
This is a new venture for both of us, and we're really excited about it. We really want to build this into a very helpful and useful podcast for you. And so that's anything that you contribute in any way, even if it's, buy me a coffee or the Patreon, all that is absolutely appreciated, and we'll become your raving fans as well, because
100%.
That is a huge compliment to us as we're still figuring things out.
I mean, it blows my mind that people even listen to it. I mean, that's completely free.
Are you sure it's not just a bunch of bots that are just subscribing?
I'll take what I can get. If only those bots could learn to rate and review with 5 stars, that'd be amazing. But,
yeah. Alexa loves our podcast. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, whatever it is, I think we're not too far away from 100 listeners per episode, and I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
But and it blows my mind, because at this point, you and I have not shared any of this, other than very, very, very close friends and close family. We have not gone on our own personal social media and plugged this at all.
Right.
So the fact that we've got 100 people that are listening to us every episode or close to it is pretty mind-blowing. So I mean, I think it'll be a real fun social experiment to see if you and I can get rich and famous off this thing, and I can not turn into just a raving lunatic prick. That'll really test all these principles that I've learned from No More Mr. Nice Guy and therapy and failed relationships. Let's really put these lessons to the test by making me rich and famous.
So everybody listening, welcome to the experiment.
Exactly. Okay, so let's talk about our experience with this book, Dan. We have a couple page long epilogue that Dr. Glover shares at the end, and we can hit a couple of the high points there. The biggest thing that I took away from this book the first time I read it was, all I have to do with this book is read it, and my life is going to be completely changed for the better. And that is not true. That is not true.
Was it like 4 or 5 hours and then your life has changed? That's pretty cool, right?
It definitely, when things were already on the track to get better, this book made me feel like it was going to make things even better.
Mm-hmm.
But then I decided to start testing it with actual relationships, and stop reading the book, stop thinking about the principles, stop going to therapy. And turns out all the same problems that led me to the book in the first place were happy to come back and revisit me. So let's instead of doing that, for any of you guys that are going through the book the first time, hopefully I can save you from making that same mistake that I did, which is, don't just read it once and think all your problems are over. So here's what you have to do instead of that. Instead of that, read it again, and go through it with an actual person from your life that you know and trust. I would say go through it with a friend. Do whatever you have to do to convince them that, regardless of their relationship status, regardless of their current mental health status, regardless of any of that, there's probably something to be gained from reading this book. I would say, I'm not saying all men need to do everything that the book recommends, but I would say all men I know would benefit from reading this book.
Yeah. I mean, I think all people really, yes, it's tailored for men, but I see a lot of the same characteristics in terms of, the hidden contracts and things like that, and the lack of communication from both men and women. So I think, just having it, just reading that just kind of puts it on your radar to kind of be aware of it with yourself or other people. And I think that's a benefit in and of itself right there. And it's going to improve your relationships, just that level of awareness, even if you don't do anything else.
Yes. And I would certainly say that if women want to understand a little bit more about why, they may have some difficulties in their relationships with men, there's going to be something in this book that applies to almost every guy, because again, I mean, almost every guy has something about his background or his way of seeing the world that causes him to think, if I'm just the real me, that's not going to be good enough. And so I have to set up a fake me that is more likable or more worthy or more fill in the blank, so that I can get what I want out of life. I have to pretend to be at least a little different from what I actually am.
Yeah. And for guys who are in relationships, with, when they have a partner, I think it's great to share this book with them. I mean, Glover mentions that, we've talked about that before, but
yeah,
for them, even, not to say that they've got a problem, but for them to share it with them and say, what Charles, just what you said is, I may not be exhibiting all of these things. However, there might be from time to time different aspects of this that I might exhibit. And by sharing that with your partner, they might be a little bit more patient in the future, if there is some sort of conflict or there's some sort of issue that like disturbs them or that you guys have together, because you might not be aware. You might be aware now. There might be a different reason than what is being presented on the surface for why somebody's acting a certain way.
Right.
And that might allow the other person then to just pause a little bit longer than usual and give that space and allow for more information to come about. And it just might lead to a resolution a little bit easier or a little bit more quickly.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I've talked with some of my friends who are girls, and I think, you know, some of them are under the impression that because guys, you know, will often compensate in different ways for things that make them feel uncomfortable, like by being cocky, like by taking charge. I mean, guys will compensate with those tools in ways that most women won't frequently do. And whether that's because of, you know, society, how we're raised, whatever. But that said, I mean, you know, to the women listening to this, you've got guys in your life who you may think are completely comfortable with who they are and with sort of steamrolling. You know, when issues come up, they try to take control and manage it, and you think that may be from a place of confidence or overconfidence, but I don't have a male friend who is not at least partially uncomfortable with something about his nature and who he is, and does not feel some level of anxiety about who he is and his place in the world. I don't know anybody like that
Right.
in my circle.
Right. And I mean, I think, you know, and that's one of the things that we kind of identified, Charles and I talked about with this book, is one of the big takeaways is that people are dealing with anxiety most people are dealing with some form of anxiety or insecurity or fear about something in their lives. And it's more about how you handle that, right? Rather than saying it's not going to exist, you know, how do you handle that? And so that's one of the big takeaways from here is being able to recognize when that's popping up, and also how to handle that in a way where it doesn't make you make decisions or react in a way
Right.
that could have consequences that snowball and kind of get out of control.
100%. And yeah, that's and I've learned to, again, I think we may have talked about this on our last episode. I've learned to completely change the way that I see and define anxiety in myself and in other people, where I had this perception of, okay, if I'm not having crippling panic attacks that's causing me to not be able to get out of bed, then, you know, I don't have anxiety. But really, it's more of an underlying, for me at least, it's an underlying concern of, what if the future's not okay?
Mm-hmm.
And having that motivate my, you know, personal, relationship, career decisions, this idea of, what if the future's not going to be okay? What do I do?
Mm.
And again, it usually is not something that's causing me to, you know, stay under the covers all day, but it is a little bit like a very low grade toothache, where it's kind of just always there in the background, and I'm not always fixated on it, but it's always having some effect on me, whether I choose to acknowledge it or not.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think that's why, you know, one of the things we're going to ask the therapists that come on is we're going to talk about anxiety, what they see with people, you know, how they display it, maybe how they counsel them for anxiety. Or, I mean, and again, like you said, I used to use that term broadly, thinking it's, you know, it's a crippling state, and
right.
You know, more, you know, and I'm kind of chalking it up a little bit more to interpreting it as more just like a fear, even if it's temporary, you know, and everybody seems to have it from time to time. So for me, it's really the other thing is, if you do feel that way, for me, it was, don't feel like there's something wrong with you because you have it, right? It's there's nothing wrong with you because you have it. That's normal. It's part of life. And I pulled some of that out of this book too, by reading that book.
Yeah.
He kind of talked about that over and over and over again, that life is not predictable. Life is not smooth. Life is, you can't control everything in life. And he mentions that in different ways, different formats. And eventually it clicks after a certain way.
100%.
And for me, it did. And it was just kind of like, and the other bottom line is, and that's okay. And most of the time your life isn't under threat when you do have those fears. And so having that awareness, being able to kind of talk down, the other part of your brain that's triggering all these feelings and emotions and hormones that are being released is important and has been helpful for me.
Yeah, I think definitely the ability to get past your anxiety and do what your character and your moral compass says needs to be done anyway is by being able to recognize it and saying, okay, I am reacting to this situation right now with anxiety. I mean, like, even at the ballroom the other night, it's like, okay, the fact that she introduced us to everybody made me feel anxious. So I had a choice. I could either get up and walk out, or I could sort of recognize, okay, when people single me out like this in a crowd of strangers, it makes me feel weird and I don't like it.
So this is a great point, right? I don't remember if it was this person or if it was Glover or somebody else had said that, when you feel anxiety, it's in your brain, and to relieve anxiety, you have to take action. You physically have to do something to relieve it. So what you just said is a perfect example of that, right? We were just sitting there. She announced, and introduced us to everybody, and we were just sitting there. And for you to relieve that anxiety, you wanted to do something active, walk.
That's
move,
true.
Get out of the situation. Right. And so, and let me ask you too, is, how anxious did you feel when you were actually dancing with somebody versus just kind of sitting there? So for me, I went, and I went through the same feelings that you did when I first started, going to these, the dances and stuff, but I knew, it's just amazing. As soon as I started to move and do something physical, I wasn't thinking about it. I maybe felt a little bit anxious, but it wasn't nearly as much as just sitting there, looking at everybody and just like letting my mind go to town. So that was,
I did not feel nearly as anxious when I was dancing, even though I was doing some dances that I didn't know how to do. And but that was because I was just one of many people dancing, where when she introduced us, everybody was just sitting there staring at us. And so that's why I felt like I was being judged and I wasn't. That experience was all in my head.
Yeah.
But that was way worse for me. Way worser was sitting there being, the center of attention. And again, it's so weird because I am an extrovert, and as we've talked about before, I do have some narcissistic tendencies. Mm-hmm. And so when I'm being singled out for something that both myself and everybody else in the room knows that I'm competent at, it feels great. I love it. But when I'm being singled out and I am not competent, it feels equally as bad as being singled out when I feel like I'm good feels. Like it's the opposite. As much as I love the one, I hate the other.
Well, I think you're the only person on the planet that happens to. So, good luck with that.
I do know plenty of people that even when they're good at something don't want to be singled out.
Sure. Oh yeah. And
I think that's probably
I kind of lean that direction as well.
Yeah,
for sure.
But if there's something that I think that I'm good at and I think I've demonstrated that I'm good at, then yes, by all means, put the spotlight on me. I can't wait. But when I don't have that confidence and that competence, it's just like, nobody look at me. Right. I want to disappear.
And the way to do that is to practice and to be okay. We have that beginner's mindset that, don't expect to walk, the first time, like a baby. You don't expect it to walk the first time it gives it a try to walk. It's going to fall and stumble and everything else like that. And it's tough when you're really good at certain things. And especially as we get older, we become more proficient in different things in life, and a lot of different things in life we just kind of take that for granted, and then when we try something brand new, it's really humbling and it's really difficult to go, hey, I'm stumbling around like a little kid here. I don't know what I'm doing. And it's tough.
Yeah. So, and you and I talked about that a little bit on our phone call last night, where it's like, if you have this if you have this setting in your mind based on childhood experiences that, you know, my needs are not worth meeting, then when you go out there and you try to meet your own needs, one of the feelings you're going to have to deal with is, oh my gosh, everybody can see me out here trying to meet my needs. They're going to laugh at me. I'm going to fail. And they're going to be like, haha, look, you tried to get what you wanted out of life and you didn't get it. And again, nobody actually feels like that because they're all too worried about meeting their own needs to stare at people failing at things or laugh at people failing at things. But that's the feeling, like, I need to go out here and learn to dance because it'll make me feel more comfortable with myself. I'll feel good about getting over something that I'm afraid of. But it's still like, but in doing this and in taking this chance, everybody's going to be watching me and they're going to be ready to point their fingers and laugh when I fail.
Right. So the reason why I like the dancing community so much is because they all started where we are. They all at one point did not know how to dance. And most of them will remind me of that when I'm like, you know, when I'm apologizing for not getting it right or stepping on their feet or whatever.
Yeah.
That a lot of times they'll be like, hey, we all started here. They're like, it's kind of like a Dan, don't worry about it. Relax. We all started here. We were all beginners, you know, and they're like, it's okay. And basically going, it's part of the process. It's part of the failures, the stepping on the feet, the getting it wrong. It's just part of the process until your brain can cement that and get it right. And they're kind about it. And that's why, and it's like almost everybody that I dance with. So it's a very supportive environment. And I guess maybe that's one of the reasons that I didn't realize till you just said it now that I like it.
But Dan, here's the mind blower. You ready to have your mind blown? Get ready. I'm going to blow your mind. That's the exact same way that strength training has been as well. It's like you get into it, you're scared that everybody's going to look at you, but the second you talk to anybody about it, all they're doing is bending over backwards to try to help you in any way that they can.
Yeah.
What if that's just the way every community is and we're just scared to dip our toes in?
Oh, you're crazy.
I think that might be it. I think that might be the secret to like learning new stuff. Like, I think that's how humans are. Like, they want to help you get good at something that you're not good at because they remember, I mean, even podcasting. That's why, you know, we were talking the other day about, you know, I'm going to send some emails to some pretty famous folks that we want to, you know, we're going to do their book and we want to talk to them maybe. And right now, you know, what podcast with 100 people, who's going to waste their time talking to us? But even these super famous, super successful authors were not always that. They were some dummy with a $50 microphone at some point, essentially.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I think it's
the equivalent of, you know,
and I think it's part of our as human beings. I think it's built into our, I'm going to say it's built into our DNA that we get to a certain point and in terms of expertise in something. And then we want to turn around and teach it because that's how we connect. Humans want to connect. We're social animals and we want to connect. And that's one way that we can do that is through teaching. And and we get some value out of being, you know, once they've, you know, gone through their struggles and their expertise and, you know, and figuring out how to do whatever we're trying to do, then they turn around and if they can teach us and help us and see that they've contributed to our being happy and feeling good and figuring things out, they're going to be they're going to feel valued too. So that's the other thing that I've taken away is that by allowing other people to help me, I'm actually making them feel good and valued. Right. And so my inner like nice guy desire to please someone and make them feel good, that kind of gets, you know, it gets a little fix. I get a little satisfied with that because it's like, okay, it's not me being selfish because they are getting something out of this.
Yeah. It's hard to stop seeing life as a zero-sum game where, you know, every relationship you go into, there's going to be a winner and a loser. There's going to be somebody who gets something out of it and somebody who gives something else up where it does. I mean, yeah, that's what, you know, that's what these new things that I'm getting in, every new thing I get into. And every time I'm shocked that, you know, the community around that thing is so nice and so welcoming. Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, maybe the lesson is, you know, whether you want to lift weights or learn to dance or play tennis or learn to swim, whatever it is. I mean, what if there is just this mass of people you've never met that are looking forward to the opportunity to help you meet your needs, and all you have to do is ask them? Right. I mean, what if that's what life is about?
Right. Well, here's the thing: is you're helping them meet their needs too. Remember
exactly.
That, right? It's and here's the other thing too, Charles. It's not like we go to these for dancing, whatever. It's not like we're forcing them to dance with us. It's not like we're forcing them to teach us. They give what they want to give.
Right.
And in the amount that they want to give. And for us to just assume that they're giving too much or that they don't want to give, first of all, is completely inaccurate.
Yeah.
Right. It's completely inaccurate because I gave up my crystal ball last week and we have no idea. Right. So what their needs are either. And so that's up for them. That's their responsibility to go, yeah, I want to give all of this because this is what I need to do to feel good is by giving this much.
Right. But
so we have to allow that. We have to allow that space, right?
When you're a bad receiver,
When you're
a bad receiver, you assume, okay, if somebody's doing something nice for me, it's because they feel sorry for me, they pity me, they feel guilty, or whatever. It's like we build this whole narrative in our head about why somebody, would. And again, a lot of that does come from childhood. It's like, okay, when the person whose job it was to meet my needs was like, not into it, thanks. Then why would we ever assume any stranger that we meet would have any interest in meeting our needs?
Yeah.
And that's the paradigm. That's what we find ourselves stuck in. Like this.
And that's where I think it's important to just not overthink things and not let the brain just keep ruminating over and over and over again. And instead do something to distract it. If you can't shut the brain up, do something to distract it. So a lot of times that's being physical, some sort of physical activity, not just meditating, but going for walks or doing some sort of exercise, strenuous or not, just something so that you're not ruminating on this and then just kind of pulling these false assumptions into your brain and then building on that and building on that and building. And if your foundation is flawed, and you keep building on top of that, that's where I think a lot of us can falter. I mean, I'm right there. I've done it most of my life, probably.
Yeah. It's, they have a term, there's a legal term that I always found interesting. And, I don't have a very large background in legality other than the occasional, speeding or parking ticket, but I do like to watch shows about lawyers. Mm-hmm. And basically what happens is when you search somebody's house or their car or whatever without a warrant, and you find something like, the knife that they used to kill somebody or whatever, it gets thrown out and they call it fruit of the poisonous vine. Where basically, okay, we can't use this knife as evidence to convict you of murder because we came about the knife because of a bad search warrant or something like that. So the knife gets to be thrown out because it's the product of a poison vine.
Interesting. I've never heard that term before. That's pretty, but it makes sense.
You should go back and watch The Practice. It was my favorite legal drama from the 90s. It was really good. Maybe it was early 2000s. But anyway, I feel like a lot of our thinking that the way we see the world is fruit of a poisonous vine.
Yeah.
Where something happened way back when, and it set us on this, whatever this course is of seeing the world. And so we just build on top of it. And it's like, no, you're making all of these new assumptions and these new conclusions based on one bad assumption from forever ago that you're just unwilling to let go of.
Yeah. And the reason why you're probably unwilling to let go of that is because you've put in so much time and energy and built so many other thoughts around this.
Right. You're so invested.
You're invested and you're like, wait a minute, if I'm wrong on this one, like on the vine, right? If I'm assuming that the vine was healthy and now it's somebody goes, oh, that vine might be poisonous. You're like, I'm not gonna, I didn't want to explore that. I don't want.
Right.
Like, I mean, oh my God.
I've been getting all of my food for my whole life from this vine. You can't expect me to let it go now.
That's a big ask. And, sometimes, you have to really struggle with something or hit a rock bottom before you're willing to take a look at that vine. And that's tough. But I think this book makes it easier. One of the things that, and I know you've done a few of these breaking free activities that Glover talks about in the book. And I think, as part of that reread that you mentioned would be sit there and go through and look at those breaking free activities and see if there's a few of them that would work for you. Again, some of those will actually get you physically doing things and out of your head. which is kind of what we talked about, and will help with some of those fears and those anxieties that might come about.
And I just Googled it, and I'm incorrect. It's fruit of the poisonous tree, not poison vine. Fruit of the poisonous tree doctrine, which is also known as derivative evidence doctrine, is a rule in criminal law that makes evidence that was derived from an illegal search inadmissible. So yeah, that's what it is.
Okay, all right.
I'm glad I felt like I might have that wrong, so now I have it right. But yeah, I think these breaking free exercises are certainly valuable. And one thing that I am going to do, which you are welcome to join me for if you'd like, is I'm going to start on this book, which it may be a little glary thanks to my ring light. So this is by Chuck Chapman. It's called No More Mr. Nice Guy, the 30-Day Recovery Journal. So it's very thin, as you can see. There's not a lot to it, but it's a 30-day program for asking yourself some hard questions about yourself based on the context of No More Mr. Nice Guy. And you go through it each day and read some stuff and then write some answers. And this episode that we're recording right now is going to be released on Valentine's Day, February 14th. So instead of buying myself a giant chocolate heart filled with some Lindor truffles, I'm going to give this to myself. Starting on Valentine's Day, I'm going to do the 30 days, and I'm going to share the whatever insights I gain from doing this 30-day process with our audience. I'll probably do some writing about it on our website, on the blog. And I'll also, when we do the little intro section to our episodes, I'll also try to mention how it's going on future episodes. So that's what I'm committed to. And you guys can buy this on Amazon, wherever you get your books. I wouldn't say the library, because there are a lot of blanks where you have to fill things out. So that would be a little selfish to borrow it from the library and then fill out all the questions. But yeah, I would encourage you guys to. Yes, the breaking free exercises in the original book are great, but I'm looking forward to this being a little bit of a different experience, and I'm going to work through it and let you guys know how it is. So I'll set my Google Calendar reminder right now that says wake up on February 14th and cry into my pillow for 2 hours max about being single, and then dive into this book.
So you're cutting back this year on the crying time.
Exactly. I'm gonna reduce it. Yeah. Last February I had somebody, and now I don't. So instead of spending 2 hours texting romantic memes and all that stuff, I'll cry, and then I'll get to work.
I think that's good. You're balancing it out, right?
Exactly.
You're right, for sure.
Yes. So that's my plan. And so Dr. Glover and the No More Mr. Nice Guy marketing engine have two things. They've got the 30-Day Recovery Journal that I just showed you, and then there's another book called No More Mr. Nice Guy, The Hero's Journey by another fella.
Also a therapist.
A therapist. I got the audiobook of this, and it was one of the situations where I thought, okay, audio is not the best format for doing this, because there are a lot of this book has a lot of tables, and tables are not great on an audiobook. It's not a lot of fun listening to somebody read you through a table. Right. And you can always, your eyes can read so much faster than your ears can hear anyway. So I recommend doing this, but then there are also exercises in here with a lot of blanks and stuff. So eventually I'm going to certainly do both of these. I'm going to finish every breaking free exercise in the original book. I'm going to do the 30-day journal, and I'm going to do the hero's journey. This one especially I think they really recommend you do this with a friend, where I would say really all of them would be better with a friend. Yeah. But this one in particular, I am not going to try to do alone. I'm going to make you do it with me at some point, Dan. It's just, a matter of when we can fit a new project into our schedule.
Yeah. No, tons of value there, for sure. I have listened to the audiobook, and I have listened to all the tables, and it is definitely good stuff, and beneficial. And again, it's, this is stuff that is going to be better for not just your, intimate relationships, but relationships with other people, with work, with family, with friends, with the world in general. Really, it's more about personal development than necessarily, specifically for men's health, right?
Yes, for sure. I mean, again, so many of these, men and women are not so different that a book that is very helpful for men is not going to have some stuff in it that helps women.
Right. Exactly.
Because people are people.
Right.
But, again, I think it does, especially, when you consider the transition that boys take to becoming men and what that looks like in modern society. It does breed a certain set of specific problems that women may not know are out there, and they may not look. I have no doubt that the transition from girl to woman has a bajillion problems in today's society that I have no understanding of, like what that must be like to go through. I mean, from
sure.
Getting the attention that you get.
We can't solve. We can't solve all the world's problems, at once. So, we start where we can. Start where we're most familiar, I believe. And in this case, it would be the transition from for boys to men, and then also as adults, how do we optimize and relieve our the issues from our past.
Yeah, because, as I've learned in therapy, it's like when you're working through the stages of development and something goes wrong where you're not able to go from one stage to another in a healthy way, you're basically pulling up the emergency brake on a car. Your body keeps growing and your brain, your neurons keep replicating, but the way that you deal with life and the way you respond to life, it gets stuck at that point where the thing went wrong.
Yeah.
And so, there's plenty of dudes walking around with 44-year-old bodies and 44-year-old brains and a 7-year-old's mindset of what the world thinks of him and what the world's willing to do for him.
Yeah. And I'm sure we'll be able to tap into a little bit more examples of that in our next couple of podcasts as we start interviewing some professional therapists. They're going to share what they've seen in their practice, and most likely it's going to be around some sort of anxiety and some of the things that they come in with, and some of the treatment options and some of the successes they've had over the years. And I'm excited to talk to them.
Yeah. So our plan in the upcoming weeks is, now that we finish this book. Well, before we do that, let me just mention a couple things. There's a suggested reading list in the back of No More Mr. Nice Guy with a few books that I've had some interaction with and some that I want to get into later. First one, Iron John by Robert Bly. I'm in the process of that right now. And that really does focus on this idea that, boys used to have initiation rites that they went to that said, okay, today you're a boy, but tomorrow you're going to be a man. And we're going to make that happen by you going through this ritual. And, while we sort of have that now, we don't have it in the way that it leads to reliable transitions and healthy transitions like we used to. So, so that's one. Iron John by John Bly. I highly recommend that. I'm halfway through and I'm loving it. Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway by Susan Jeffers. That was a big one for Dr. Glover. And then there's a couple more that I haven't read yet, so I'm not willing to put our super valuable stamp of approval on them quite yet. Okay, so we're going to close the book on No More Mr. Nice Guy for now. We will announce that at some point in the not too distant future, Dan and I are going to start on the next book, which is going to be 12 Rules for Life by Dr. Jordan Peterson. And boy, do we have a lot of stuff to say about him as a man and as a media personality, as well as what he has to say in the book. So I'm looking forward to getting into that. We'll do an intro episode first, and then we'll start going chapter by chapter, or in this case, rule by rule, to share our thoughts from this very, very, very popular self-help book from the last few years.
Yeah, I'm excited for that one. That was a great choice. That was Charles's suggestion. So got to give him the credit for that.
Or the blame, depending how it goes. All right. Well, thanks very much, Dan. Do you have anything else to offer before we get off for today?
I don't.
Okay, cool. Well, then I will talk to you later today, I'm sure, and I'll talk to everybody else a week from now on our February 14th Happy Valentine's Day podcast.
Sounds good, man. Have a good week. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. You too. Talk to you later, Dan. Bye.
Bye-bye.